all of this has not been easy. And yet, these experiences and challenges are not isolated cases, but rather, they are shared across parliaments throughout the world. And this is why we are here today. Because the Mexican Chamber of Deputies, the German Federal Parliament, and the German Corporation for Sustainable Development in Mexico have decided to join efforts to create a space to exchange good practices in response to the challenges raised by the pandemic in the world's parliaments. Welcome to the International Innovation Forum, Public Administrations in Times of COVID-19, Sustainable Adaptation Strategies. My name is Lorena Luna. I'm a social innovation consultant at MakeSense. And for the past 10 years, I have been working in building and strengthening social businesses and communities in Mexico and Latin America. And today, it's a great honor to be your host in this opening event. Herzlich willkommen. Today, we will have the presence of representatives from each one of our distinguished host organizations. They will be joining and collecting live in different parts of the world. And each one of them has a unique set of experiences and skills. They are gonna be joining us and explaining us what is the purpose, the goals and the objectives that we try to achieve in this innovation forum. We are also gonna have the presence of a great keynote speaker who's gonna give us a lot of information and insights regarding the thematics that we will further explore. So hopefully, at the end of today's event, you're gonna feel more prepared and ready to engage in the learning journey that we are about to start together. So, as we're starting, I hope a lot of you are gonna be connecting live right now. And we are happy to share that this conversation is gonna be also kept for you to watch in the future if you wish so. So I will ask you to please join us right now in the YouTube channel. We have members of our team who are gonna be reading our messages. So if you can please share with us, where are you joining us? Good morning if you are in Mexico or somewhere in Latin America, and good afternoon if you are joining us from somewhere in Europe. So, okay, we have some messages here. We have people joining from Mexico, Berlin, the UK, Peru. Thank you so much. And please, this is gonna be the channel that we are gonna have to follow the conversation during this opening event. So, to get started, I'm gonna introduce you right now with the first host organization, the German Bundestag. It is the supreme constitutional organ of the Federal Republic of Germany and the only organ of the state that is directly elected by its people. And today, with great pressure, we are gonna connect all the way to Berlin in Germany with Mrs. Claudia Roth, who is the Vice President at the Bundestag. Please, let's welcome Mrs. Roth.
Honorable members of the Cámara de Diputados, ladies and gentlemen, estimadas y estimados colegas en la Cámara de Diputados, señores y señoras. The COVID-19 pandemic has held the whole world in thrall since 2020. It has, naturally, affected the work of parliaments too. Our parliaments are the beating hearts of our democracies, and they have proved that yet again during the COVID pandemic, not as part of the executive, but with our own initiatives to seek the best possible solutions in this difficult time to build policy. In parliamentary work and parliamentary administrations, a great deal of creativity has been demonstrated and a lot has been done to maintain operations in these exceptional circumstances. This is now the trigger for our cooperation. But this is a positive manifestation as we learn from the crisis and turn our joint attention to the future. The German Bundestag is therefore delighted to have the opportunity to work with you all on this innovative project for more resilience and greater sustainability in parliamentary practice. Parliaments are at the forefront when it comes to addressing processes of social change and playing a responsible and constructive role in global issues like climate change. To do these things, they need to be able to respond in any situation and without relying on a fixed geographical location. The pandemic has shown us that we need to become not only quicker, but also more innovative in this respect, so as to meet barriers and resistance head-on. Climate change will not wait for us, and nor will a pandemic. Our society rightly expects us, as legislators, to come up with solutions. That is why we are working together on this learning journey on questions and possibilities regarding how we might make the work of our parliaments more resilient and sustainable in future. In this endeavor, parliaments have a special responsibility to operate with openness and transparency vis-à-vis the public. They should lead by example in implementing, for instance, sustainable ideas for the environment and the world of work. The subject matter of the learning journey is thus already sketched out. Administrative reform, sustainability, agile working methods and digitalization, to name but the headline topics. In this pandemic, we have seen how much creative potential there is in all of us and how much suddenly became possible. Which elements of that are here to stay and what might we even take to the next level? Those are the issues we are here to pool ideas on and jointly develop further. Solutions end up better when people with different professional experience and from varying cultural contexts put their heads together. That is the core of modern digital design thinking and, as such, exactly the working method you will be engaging in on this learning journey. We are very grateful for the chance to try it out in this exciting collaboration of experts. I am sure we will each come away with interesting outcomes. One thing at least is clear from the start. Thanks to this digital form of cooperation, the pandemic is longer an obstacle. That is already a wonderful and forward-looking outcome. Allow me now to wish all of you the best of success, pleasure, and inspiration on this learning journey. Y ahora les deseo mucho éxito, alegría e inspiración durante este learning journey.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Roth, for your message. It is very on point with what we're trying to achieve in today's opening event. And actually, also, your polyglot skills remind me of the special effort that our host organizations have put in made this opening event inclusive for everyone regarding of their language of their preference. Today, if you access the ifoinnovationforum.com, in the agenda section, you will be able to see this video in either Spanish and also in German. In case that you want to select, you can click there directly. So, actually, Mrs. Roth mentioned a very important point, that was that unleashing our creativity is key to learn from the past, but it also allows us to build a more resilient and inclusive future. And speaking of creativity, this leads me to our next speaker, Diego Reyeros. He's the MakeSense Regional Development of MakeSense of the Americans. He's a devoted advocate of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. He's a youth engagement leader in different organizations, and he's well known for his multi-sectoral collaboration and management skills. Today, he's gonna actually give you a clear understanding of this methodology that you will be using during our time together. He will be explaining why is it important, why are we using this methodology, as well as ways in which you can start engaging. So please help me connect right now with Diego Reyeros.
Hi, Lorena. Thank you for the
Hola.
introduction. I am thrilled to be with you all today. My feelings about the forum are of excitement because we're finally meeting this week to work and to co-create together. As you mentioned, Lorena, in the introduction, this learning journey started even before the opening event. Weeks before, participants received information for collaborative offline activities, which provided them with insightful information for the live workshops we're starting this week. All of this was part of a creative process that we have called the learning journey. This has been structured with innovation methodologies like design thinking and speculative design. Following the normal journey of design thinking, you're going to be experiencing the phases of informing, exploring, and designing. We have already walked through the first phase, informing, by empathizing with the challenge, accessing keynote speaker videos, and participating in collaborative activities in an interactive platform. In addition to this, we have developed 4 thematic corridors for this learning journey. Number 1, transforming parliaments for a post-COVID time. Number 2, labor innovation. Number 3, citizen participation and transparency. And number 4, sustainable public infrastructure and management. In order to stimulate creativity among participants, inspirational and informative content has been made available previous to the live workshop sessions. The second and third phases, exploring and designing, are about to start today. This opening event marks the beginning of a set of virtual live sessions focused on opening dialogue, exchanging knowledge, and co-designing the future together. Each corridor will have 2 live workshop sessions. The first, assigned to the exploration phase, in which we're going to be deeply analyzing challenges caused by the pandemic in order to recognize current obstacles, put priorities on areas of action, and align visions of desirable futures of each thematic corridor. And the second workshop will be assigned to the designing phase, in which we're going to be using the speculative design methodology to polish action plans that will be providing solutions to challenges we're facing today. This week, we're going to be having the sessions for corridor number 1 and 2, and in October, we're going to be having the sessions for corridors 3 and 4. Each session has been carefully designed to bring the best output out of the thematic corridors, as well as to explore specific challenges that have been identified by stakeholders during the learning journey. In MakeSense, we're really excited to begin this opening session, and we look forward to seeing and meeting everybody tomorrow during the workshop sessions. As an organization that is devoted to enable social and environmental impact by building collaborations between citizens, social entrepreneurs, corporations, and public institutions like you, for us, it is a huge privilege to join you in this journey. We can't wait to share with you, co-create with you, and bring our minds together to innovate collectively. There is no greater wisdom than one that is built together, in which all voices are heard, and most importantly, where no one is left behind. Once again, thank you very much, Lorena, for this invitation. And now we go back to you in the studio in Mexico City.
It's always a pleasure to hear from you, Diego. Thank you so much. And I'm very sure that at this point, you have cleared a lot of doubts that the participants may have regarding the methodology. And actually, I would like to share with you now the login page, the login section of our website. If you're a participant, we invite you to click on this private section for you to explore the different tools, resources, and methodologies that Diego just explained right now. So now that you have this information and hopefully you take time to look further into the details, I would like to transition into our next host organization. The 2030 Agenda Initiative by the GIZ in Mexico. It's a joint project between the Mexican and German government to promote the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Through programs such as the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, also known as the BMC, contributes in a timely manner by putting a new focus on areas such as harnessing digital technology and innovation for sustainable recovery. Having said that, I would like to introduce you with Mr. Volker Uhl. He's a commissioner for Latin America of the Federal Minister for the Economic Cooperation and Development. And he's actually connecting with us this afternoon, for him who is currently joining us from Bonn in Germany. Please, let's connect with Mr. Uhl.
Honorable members of the Cámara de Diputados de México, honorable members of the Deutsche Bundestag, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, I would like to welcome you all to this International Innovation Forum, a forum which is dedicated to the topic of public administrations in the times of the COVID-19 pandemic, finding sustainable adaptation strategies, and a forum which takes place within the framework of the long-standing cooperation between Mexico and Germany, in particular around issues on sustainable development and good governance. The COVID-19 pandemic poses tremendous challenges to both of our two countries, Mexico and Germany, and of course to the international community at large. What started off as a health crisis has long evolved into a polypandemic, impacting on our economic and social well-being, as well as on the social fabric and the social cohesion within our societies. The pandemic has also drastically changed the way public institutions work, both internally and externally, and made it necessary to rethink our business models. How to best deliver services to the public in a state of a pandemic. How to best provide for safe and transparent spaces for citizen participation that ensure that no one is left behind and that our core democratic principles are upheld. We have, for example, witnessed an unparalleled increase in the demand for innovative and digital solutions in the public arena that help to bridge the gap between citizens and public institutions. In this respect, the challenges posed by the pandemic are also an opportunity to learn, and they clearly offer an opportunity for the state, both for governments and parliaments, to do everything in their power to guarantee a better and sustainable recovery after the pandemic. Parliaments around the world have embarked on the quest for adequate solutions for these challenges. The challenges that parliaments face and the experiences they make are not isolated cases, but are shared by many at international level. This forum will therefore allow us to generate knowledge and co-design concrete solutions and innovative tools for parliamentary management with a profound sustainability approach. I highly welcome this initiative by our German Development Corporation, namely by GIZ Mexico, in conjunction with both parliaments to embark on a learning journey together. Mexico is a key partner for Germany and plays a pivotal role in the realm of international and regional exchange formats, especially in order to foster democracy and good governance. Specifically in our development cooperation relations, we are looking back on many years of fruitful cooperation, also with regard to the implementation of international agendas such as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. An agenda and a cooperation which I think will now be key for a sustainable recovery post-COVID. My ministry is very pleased to be part of this important event that brings together actors from parliaments, government institutions, international bodies and academia in order to share experiences as well as discussing and developing sustainable and innovative solutions that strengthen parliamentary work in the context of the pandemic. For your deliberations, I wish you the best of success.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ohl, for your words and for connecting live with us today. We can clearly see the commitment that the German government has made in bringing disciplinary actors together, strengthening international alliances, and creating new synergies. With this, I would like to transition into a very special moment for this opening event. Let me introduce you to our keynote speaker. He is a thinker, a writer, and a change maker. He's an advocate and an architect for democracy. He's passionate about creating stronger governance. He's a global leader in democratic innovation and civic participation. Dr. Williamson supports organizations to transform their culture and processes to become more creative, more open, transparent, and effective. In addition, he has held senior leadership and government positions in the private, public, and charity sectors. He's also a distinguished fellow of the Royal Society of the Arts in the UK. Without further ado, it is an honor to present you today with Dr. Williamson. Let's connect with him now.
Thank you for the introduction and for the opportunity to address everyone at the start of this very exciting learning journey. I'm pleased to be here joining you today and to be able to explore parliamentary innovation with you. My name's Andy Williamson. I'm Senior Researcher in the Interparliamentary Union's Centre for Innovation in Parliament. Innovation has never been more important and more timely for parliaments, not least given our experiences of the last 18 months. Before you start your session corridors tomorrow, I want to give you some insight into the way that parliaments have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic and to highlight some of the innovative practices that have emerged. Above all, I want to use the pandemic as a case study in how parliaments can become more responsive and how they can collaborate, learning and sharing together. In the second part of my address, I'll talk about how this aligns with the thematic corridors you'll be focusing on. But first, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what's happened in parliaments around the world since the start of the pandemic. Parliaments, as you can imagine, have been challenged and changed by the sudden disruptive shock of the COVID-19 pandemic. This has, though, not been without opportunities. The pandemic has offered the chance to take bold steps towards the modernisation of parliaments, and as such, this innovation has been led by digital tools and has moved through what I see as three distinct phases. Firstly, we saw the enforced innovation, where parliaments have had to respond quickly, experimented, deployed and revised quickly. Then we moved on to a second iterative improvement phase, where second stage of innovation helped enhance those working solutions, and finally the embedding of those solutions into new ways of working, with the processes and tools that support them into the day-to-day fabric of the Parliament. During the course of the pandemic, digital tools have become far more visible, shifting from the back office to be front and centre in keeping parliaments running. This surge in the innovative use of new technologies and move to more agile ways of working has transformed both culture and workplace, people and processes. Many of the parliaments that we at the IPU have worked with over the last 18 months describe making years' worth of progress in months. It's stating the obvious when I say that these parliaments now look and feel different. They function in new ways, with digital tools at the centre, enabling this transformation. But will this change last? And what of the parliaments who could not or chose not to innovate? For those parliaments who could be bold, this is an accelerated pathway, but others can benefit too. The experiences gained and the ideas now percolating around the parliamentary community can be harnessed and leveraged at every stage of organisational maturity. Innovation is not always about the leading edge, but moving forward from where you are. Innovation always happens in a context. Our latest World e-Parliament report presents a unique picture of the digital and innovative Parliament during and beyond the pandemic. And it shows us that the way parliaments work has changed, with more emphasis on remote working, greater reliance on cloud-based tools, and digital solutions have put ICT at the forefront of parliamentary operations, as I mentioned. Parliamentary modernisation has accelerated, and many parliaments have moved quickly to adopt solutions never previously considered, or before the pandemic seemed to be many years away. By the end of 2020, 65% of parliaments that we surveyed had held virtual or hybrid committee meetings, and 33% a virtual or hybrid plenary meeting. To cope with this, parliamentary procedures have to evolve too, allowing new ways of working, including parliaments sitting virtually. And parliaments have had to become more agile and more responsive. An emerging crisis has necessitated fast solutions, which have been developed iteratively, tools changed, and working practices pivoted quickly to solve problems as they appear. This is not all about technology though, and parliaments have had to overcome issues of trust in both the process and the tools. They've done this by increasing involvement with users, making their IT teams more user-centred, and solutions and training provided for support to support members and staff in a just-in-time fashion. Moving forward, what has to happen? Significant implications for infrastructure, planning and support within parliaments. The demand for bandwidth has increased, systems run in the cloud and users want their own equipment. All of this has implications for security and support, and for HR, contingency planning and even facilities management of the buildings. But to embed lasting change, our research shows that parliaments need to proactively retain and adapt the efficiencies that have been realised over the last 18 months and make sure that rules and procedures are flexible to cope with the crisis in the future. They must take a parliament-wide view of technology through a digital strategy, be more holistic, institution-wide, and approach digital as integrating it into the planning and wider fabric and culture of Parliament. Of course, this brings with it more opportunities for innovation across the whole of Parliament. So, that's the big picture. Let me now move on to talking about 3 specific areas of interest to you over the coming days: interparliamentary collaboration, innovation in internal working modalities, and the impact on civic participation. You would, I guess, appreciate that coming from the IPU, I would be arguing strongly for more interparliamentary collaboration, and I am. This matters to parliaments of all shapes, sizes and levels of maturity. In our latest World e-Parliament report, we found that 62% of parliaments want to receive more support from other parliaments. That's not to say that there aren't other sources of support, but parliaments are themselves unique, and so working together makes a lot of sense. The pandemic presents a fascinating case study in how parliaments have responded. Some acted very quickly, moving to implement virtual proceedings without delay. Brazil, Spain, and perhaps more surprisingly, the Maldives were early adopters in this area. Others wanted to move, but procedure delayed this. Chile had to change the constitution, and Ireland was never able to be fully virtual because of constitutional limitations. Yet other parliaments were unsure or hesitated. All knew that this was something new and that no one had the perfect answer, so parliaments came together. At the Centre for Innovation in Parliament, we have a number of WhatsApp groups where parliaments have, for the last 18 months, shared ideas, asked for advice and discussed, either in the group or via online meetings, how to proceed. Parliaments have shared not only ideas, but source code and support to make off-the-shelf software work as well. This network has highlighted how much easier it is to solve a problem when you have colleagues familiar with how you work supporting you. And parliaments have also been able to use this extensive network to benchmark their ideas, assist with budgeting, and to understand which tools work best in a variety of different circumstances, and of course, which ones don't. The pandemic has highlighted better than ever why parliaments need to work together and share their knowledge. As a result of our experience, the Centre for Innovation in Parliament is developing a new peer assistance programme for parliaments. This will allow a parliament to raise a strategic or technical issue, and we then facilitate a webinar with 4 or 5 other parliaments of similar size and with similar interests and experience. The ideation and exchange in turn supports all the parliaments who take part to move further forwards. Not a new approach in itself, but a novel approach to parliamentary innovation, a fast, rapid, help us solve a problem. Let's look at how the way people work has changed during the pandemic. The most obvious observation is that at times during the last 18 months, parliaments have been closed to all but absolutely essential staff. There are still limitations in place in many. And whilst the media focus has rather obviously been on how members can still sit and what will happen there, the reality has been that staff right across parliaments have had to adopt new ways of working too. In practice, the parliaments that have adapted the fastest are the ones who have already invested in cloud-based storage and software as a service. Those with mature IT strategies that have thought ahead are already there and able to work remotely. One parliament very quickly that already had a license for Microsoft Teams because it was included in the overall subscription. Although they'd never used it before, they were able to roll it out very quickly. But it's not just about software. Remote working places increased demand on parliamentary bandwidth. It requires staff and members to either borrow equipment or use their own. Both of these have implications for support and serious implications for network security. On the softer side, people have to be supported differently, and the HR function needs to react and innovate to ensure that the needs of people working remotely are taken care of. Whilst a reaction to the pandemic, remote and flexible working has some clear benefits for both parliaments and for staff. And many parliaments that we've spoken to intend to continue with it. The New Zealand Parliament and the Irish Parliament are making arrangements to allow flexible working to continue. The South African Parliament has been thinking about how this changes the line management relationship and the sort of pastoral support remote workers need. In the UK, the Parliamentary Digital Service sees an opportunity to recruit staff from anywhere in the country, not just those who live in London or are willing to move there. And one of the problems we identify regularly in the IPU's World eParliament report is the difficulty in recruiting high calibre staff. It's regularly seen as a challenge for parliaments, so offering flexible and remote solutions seems like a good way forward for this. The pandemic has been a tale of two halves when it comes to citizen participation. In theory, Remote sittings mean that there is more content and the digitisation of Parliament has advanced. However, this has not always been the case, and some countries have used the pandemic to regress on their commitments to openness, transparency and greater participation. Even when this has not been the intention, simply the rapid onset of a crisis has created barriers in many cases. There are, however, some positives emerging. In New Zealand, Parliament convened a special COVID response committee whilst the House was suspended. The high media interest and coverage it received has seen trust and interest in Parliament rising, so much so that they've now had to work on new qualitative analysis systems to be able to analyse the themes emerging from large-scale public submissions as more people are submitting online to their committees. And in Brazil, they're deploying artificial intelligence and machine learning based systems to understand submissions from the public better. Both of these tools help members process the volumes of information that they receive and make more sense of what the public is saying in response to draft legislation. Parliamentary committees have shown themselves particularly well suited to remote functioning. The Norwegian Parliament implemented Zoom-based committees in April 2020, and they've considered this a great success, though they recognise that it does create some new challenges for committee staff. In addition, the feedback from civil society groups has been positive. They felt more able to participate. They've also seen advantages in overcoming the tyranny of distance for those wanting to be heard but not living close to the Parliament and perhaps less able to travel. And the same has been true in the UK. The House of Lords, moving to virtual committee meetings at the same time as Norway, saw that one of the key benefits to this new modality was that they could take evidence from witnesses located anywhere around the world. And because there's no need for travel, this was also much easier to organise. And it's something that members of the House of Lords have expressed great enthusiasm to see continuing in the future. I hope that these three brief examples and the background I've given you are useful insights into how innovation can emerge from disruption and necessity. Certainly, the last 18 months have taught me that parliaments can be responsive to people and responsive to a crisis, and that they can quickly pivot to find new ways of working. Innovation, even in a crisis, is never wasted, and none of the parliaments that we work with looks the same today as it did at the start of 2020. But the traditional friction for parliaments, at least, has often been a conservative and risk-averse culture, and the pandemic temporarily swept this away from many of our institutions, and the results have been impressive. Technology, then, is often the driver of innovation, but the pandemic shows us all too clearly that it's about transformation of both process, and if the changes are to become embedded, culture too. I'd like to finish off by thanking the organisers once again for the opportunity to speak with you here today, and to wish you all the best as you set off on a fascinating and, I hope, deeply rewarding journey. I'll say goodbye and hand you back to the studio in Mexico. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williamson, for sharing specific examples and backgrounds of how different government institutions and parliaments throughout the world have actually responded to the COVID crisis. I would like to highlight a point that you mentioned of how innovation actually can emerge from both disruption and necessity. I was also intrigued to hear what you said, that innovation is not only about technology as we usually think, but it's also about trust. And I was also surprised by the statistics that you just shared, that more than 60% of parliamentarians wish that they have more support from parliamentarians from other governments and countries. because this is exactly what we want to achieve by bringing experts in this learning journey. Without a doubt, among all the challenges, conversations between multilateral institutions are critical if we want to recover better out of this crisis. And now it's a good moment in which we can connect again. If you're still following this transmission now live, please write here in the YouTube channel box, because our team is very attentive of your messages, and let us know what were your thoughts and reactions to Dr. Williamson's message. So we're getting closer to the end, but before we do so, I would like to remind our participants that we are so thrilled to have you started tomorrow. This week, we are gonna start with our first and second session for Corridors 1 and 2, which are transforming parliaments for a post-COVID time and labor innovation. All of our sessions are gonna be held via Zoom. So you probably by now have already all the links and the information. And all of our sessions are 2 hours long. We're gonna be connecting at 9:30 if you are in Mexico time or somewhere in Latin America. And if you're in the rest of the world, we are connecting at 4:30 p.m. each day, depending on the corridor that you are. If you are not one of our registered participants, but would like to still see some information, please make sure that you check on the IFUS Innovation website. On the agenda side, we have some amazing experts who also dive deeper into the different thematic corridors that we have prepared for you. And the last host organization that I would like to introduce you today is the Chamber of Deputies, which is the lower house of Mexico's legislative branch. It is constituted of 500 deputies, all of whom are representatives of the Mexican people. And Mexico has demonstrated its constitutional commitments to gender equality. And for the first time in history, this first new legislative has reached an absolute gender parity, which I think it's a great example of what we can achieve in many other different parts of the world. Right now, they have 250 men and 250 women deputies from across the country. So now, with this, I would like to introduce you to the newly elected president of the Chamber of Deputies, Deputy Sergio Carlos Gutierrez Luna, who is also gonna be connecting right now from Mexico City. So please, help me connect with him right now.
Honorable members of the German Parliament, good morning Mexico, guten Tag Deutschland. Only a few times in history has mankind faced, in the same age, a worldwide crisis that made an attempt on people's lives in such an obvious and direct way. However, as devastating as they may be, crises also create a great opportunity for transforming renovation. Thus, I fully agree with the Vice President of the German Parliament, Mrs. Roth, when she stated that the crisis experienced due to COVID-19 pandemic has led to great creativity too. For over a year, parliaments and governments around the world have faced the challenge to adapt to the context of the pandemic in order to keep fulfilling our purpose and mandate to protect the rights and integrity of the people we represent. Adaptation became an area of fruitful inventiveness and selection of plenty of possible options by taking advantage of the exchange of the existing knowledge and technological development in the world. We were confined, but not isolated. The proof is that here we are together. When we carried out new working ways, we began to question the sustainability of the dynamic of both the public and private life in the times before the pandemic. Likewise, we noticed that the graveness of the situation was caused by the persistence of long-standing problems, such as social inequality and an insufficient understanding of the relation between the preservation of human health and the conservation of the environment. The foregoing leads us to take seriously the search for sustainable alternatives in the post-COVID era. This forum is a clear effort towards that goal. The reality is that all of our problems, both old and new, cannot be solved by using the same way of thinking that created them in the first place. Legislators and public servants now stand before a turning point, an opportunity to address urgent public affairs, both national and global, like this pandemic, from a sustainable, inclusive, and innovative perspective. In order to rise from our current challenge, it will be necessary to make the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development a priority for our respective managements. The forum that starts today clearly shows this intention and has been carefully designed to channel the innovation triggered in parliaments and public institutions due to the pandemic towards a sustainable approach. During the next days, we will have a unique opportunity, maybe the first one ever, to collaborate with stakeholders that have led the creation of ideas, solutions, and their execution in order to keep parliaments and institutions in place. We know that strategies have been varied, both technological and non-technological, and have opened possibilities for new ways to serve citizens and provide public services. Likewise, it is important to acknowledge that the reorganization of the workforce caused by the pandemic has been innovative, but it is still necessary to assess and reflect on the ways these work models have favored or not the people's quality of life, the institution's productivity, and even the environment due to a lesser mobility. Also, as a consequence of the confinement, the management of the physical infrastructure of our institutions has had no choice but to adapt, and throughout that process, we have learned alternative and probably more sustainable ways to manage and maintain these buildings. Public servants, officials, legislators, academics, and representatives of several organizations who have decided to be involved in the learning process of this forum have certainly a lot to say about the aforementioned issues. This period has taught us that there is no turning back and that our new normality shall be to innovate amid unpredictable and uncertain scenarios. We are sure that this forum will lead to new and interesting strategies that will inspire the decisions of both legislators and public servants to respond to urgent and uncertain situations. We'll be gladly attentive to the outcomes. Now let me wish you all the best of luck in this journey of collaboration and knowledge. Welcome and good luck. Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you so much, Deputy Gutierrez, for connecting with us right now. And thank you also for reminding us that there is no way back on how things were, but we will have to keep adapting to the upcoming changes. We are also hoping to see that at the end of this event, we will have solutions that will be carried upon our participants and our parliamentarians. And please remember that we'll be sharing the results of this learning journey in our website, so keep yourself posted. I would like to thank now each of the members of our host organizations who have been actively working during these past months to design this experience for all of you. Thank you so much for our guest speakers, our representatives who had made a tremendous effort to connect live with us from different parts of the world. And thank you so much as well for connecting this morning or this afternoon. I would like to close this event by reminding all of our participants that this International Innovation Forum, it's a great, unique opportunity that we have to design, build, and co-create solutions that will shape more resilient and just institutions and societies. Welcome to this learning journey.